Welcome to our first creator interview. We are so very excited that you could join us. One of today's main themes that we'll be focusing on is inspiration. A lot of us may feel that we have to have a completely original idea for our stories. However, there's a balance to taking inspiration from a series. In this interview, we're going to explore so many interesting and fun aspects of this creator's process and thinking. All right, let's dive in. Hello again, everyone. Today, I am super excited to have the world famous, the one and only Hobbish, aka Jess. Welcome to the interview, Jess. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm just so grateful that you took the time out today to be here with me live. Well, I was gonna say in person, but that's not true. Here on Zoom. So I'm
That's a
just really
lie. Lie.
So thank you again for taking out the time today. I know you have a busy schedule. You are juggling a lot of things, it seems, and I know you just wrapped up your season one finale, so I'm sure you're hard at work working on season two. If you
Yes.
wanna drop any hints, let us know any of the juicy details there. You can. I'm just kidding, but so let's go ahead and just get started with everything. I think everyone probably would just like to know a little bit about you. Can you tell us about yourself? Like just some general things?
Yeah. I'm Jessica, aka Jess. I am the creator of The Witch's Stone on Webtoon Canvas. I've been posting it for about a year. Been working on it for a little bit longer than that, and it's my first series ever. So I'm kind of learning along the way.
That's so crazy that this is your first series, to be honest. When I was reading over it and everything, like everything seems to be done so well, in my opinion. I mean, of course, I'm an amateur. So like your paneling, like the bubbles, like everything read so clearly. I can't believe this is
Okay.
your first comic.
Thanks. It is. I feel like I've learned a lot over the course of the year.
So you started
Yeah.
this during the beginning of what, 2020, 2019, end of 2019,
I
or
think my first episode went up in January of 2020 or 2021. Yeah,
2021? Okay.
2021.
Right. We're in
Yeah.
2022. I keep forgetting
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
January for all of you that do not know this. This is being recorded in January. So the year's just changed and Apollo is trying to put himself in the past, which is not accurate.
It's hard to keep up.
It is. I mean, honestly, sometimes Fridays feel like Mondays and Mondays feel like Saturdays. So, I mean, what are you gonna do these days?
I don't know. I don't
But that's pretty
know.
interesting that you've only been working on this for a year. I really feel like your style and just your storytelling seems so advanced. Have you been drawing or writing before you started this webtoon journey?
Well, I've been drawing, I think, pretty much my whole life. I kind of stopped for a while, and then I got back into it basically when I started my series. But writing, I've never written anything before in my life, like creatively, like never.
Oh man, no, that can't be true. Like I feel like the story's done so well. So did you study a lot for the writing part or
I did a lot of research, mostly watching YouTube videos. That's pretty much how I learn everything these days. Um,
you and the rest of the world? Like everybody pretty much
right.
like YouTube is the ultimate source. Like you want to learn how to make like, I don't know, apple butter or something, go to YouTube. Like you want to learn how to like put a lamp together like from scratch, go to YouTube. So that makes
You
sense
want
to
to
be
learn how to
honest.
write? You can learn how to
Exactly.
write from YouTube. Yeah. So, but I am very much a planner. So,
Mm.
I did do a lot of research on like plotting and like different plotting structures and how to write you know basic stuff that like I just didn't know anything about. And I actually like scripted my whole comic before I started.
Wait, so do
Um,
you know the ending?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay. How many seasons is the webtoon going to be?
Um, so I do think it's gonna end up being a little bit longer than I
Mhm.
thought whenever I scripted it because being a new writer, there were like some things that I was really plot focused when I was writing it. And then going along actually drawing it, I realized that I needed to add in some more character development kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking I was originally wanting it to be 2 seasons,
Mm.
you know, about 80 episodes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's probably going to end up being more like 3 seasons with like maybe 30 or 35 episodes each. But we will see.
Ooh, that's really interesting. Like, I think it is a little bit of a challenge sometimes to take novel specific advice and translate it like one for one to comic writing style. It's just like slightly different. Like they're very similar, but slightly different. And there's just things like in the comic, I feel sometimes that because of the drawing aspect, that takes up
Yeah,
that takes a little bit more planning sometimes opposed to just being able to like write a paragraph, and so
right.
it can warp the sense of the flow of the story a little bit just in the how long it'll end up being. So that's pretty
Yeah,
interesting. I'm actually really excited because I felt like when I was reading it that you were leading up to something. Like the story seems to be really focused in a sense of like I can see a clear direction. I don't know what it is completely, but I really feel like I'm being led somewhere. So that's
right.
really cool.
Good. Good, it's working.
No, it definitely is. So, other than that, we mentioned a little bit that you've been drawing all of your life. So, I'm guessing maybe you stopped drawing when you started college or something and then came back to it. Have you always just had a passion, or what was your art journey like?
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. Like, I started college and then, just kind of stopped. And then after college, got a job. And then I started, I don't know, at some point, I was like, I need some creative hobbies again. Because, if you're like an artistic person,
Mm,
it's kind of depressing not to have any hobbies like that, right? So,
mm,
started doing all kinds of different artistic things. Like, I got into like cake decorating for a while.
ooh,
Um,
I love
yeah,
cakes. Like,
I was doing cakes are good, and I was doing like making little clay jewelry things, and then at some point I started doing like it was like an art prompt journal kind of thing where it was like
mm,
gives you different prompts, and
mm,
you just draw something or whatever to meet that prompt. And that's kind of how I got started back drawing. And then with my comic, it was kind of like I don't know, it was kind of like a personal challenge kind of thing. Like I got really into Webtoon, like reading webcomics, and my sister was into it too. So we would talk about webcomics all the time. And then one day she said, like, why don't you just make one? Because you like reading them so much.
mm,
And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know if my art's that great yet. And I don't think I can write anything. I've never written anything in my life.
mm.
So then it became like a kind of like a little personal challenge. Like in my brain, I was like, I can't do it, but if I could, what would it be like? And then I ended up like writing a whole script for a comic, and I was like, well, now I've got to do it because I wrote the whole thing. So
Yes. I love to see like a family member just being that little extra nudge you need sometimes because I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a big self doubt about taking on big projects, especially if I feel like they're too much for me. And I just need like a little
right,
kick, like
right,
just do it. Do it, dude, and
yeah,
then you'll be fine. And if you fail, oh well, like it just is what it is. But I love that. So your sister's I'm guessing a pretty big support for you then. Does she help you with the comic at all?
yeah. She has been helping me do my flat coloring for a lot of the process, which I was using Krita before, and I don't know if you're familiar with Krita at all, but the coloring is not so easy.
Oh,
uh,
okay. No, I'm
it
not
takes a little.
familiar with it.
I mean, it's not horrible, but like I got Clip Studio Paint for Christmas, and like like flatting in Clip Studio is like so much easier now that I fired her. But up until recently, she's been helping me do the flats.
No, I was going to say, well, shout out to your sister for being like the best assistant ever, but she's lost the job. So I guess, a little small
Fired.
advertisement for your sister. If you need a colorist, reach out to Hobbyist sister. She's looking for a job.
Yeah, she got fired because she got replaced by the machines. You can't beat Clip Studio.
No, it's the machine uprising already. I feel so bad for her. Well, let her know that, I'll let you know to let her know that if I ever need a colorist, she's like top of my list. Like,
Okay.
I mean,
let her know.
I don't dislike coloring yet. Like, I feel like everybody always talks about how, like, annoying the flatting or coloring process is, and I'm just like, this is my favorite part. It generally goes the quickest. My line art is what kills me. I'm like, can somebody do this for me? So
Yeah.
well, if your sister does line art, send her my way too. Like,
I used to really hate line art, like when I started. Like I would fuss around with it a lot, and then at some point it became my favorite part. Like I love line art now.
oh, okay. Well, why don't we just go ahead and jump into your webtoon? We've kind of been beating around the bush about it, but let's just get into the juicy details. So you mentioned that you're the creator of The Witch's Stone. The link's in the description, so everybody, please go check it out. Support Jess, leave her likes in all of the comments. But why don't you tell us, like, what The Witch's Stone is about? Just like break it down for us, give us all the juicy details, like inform us with the best pitch possible for this. Like if you were about to like pitch this to like Warner Brothers or something, like what would you say? How would you tell them? How would you tell them?
A lot of pressure.
Is it? It's only like a multi-million-dollar contract. That's all.
It's fine. Everything's fine. Okay. Well, so let me read you the little summary and then I'll elaborate. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. So Luna is a young witch with unique abilities. When her coven insists that she leave home to study in a new city, she finds herself surrounded by new people and dark secrets. So that's like my webtoon summary. But basically, the story follows Luna, who's our protagonist, and she is a lunar witch, or, like a moon witch. And her specific abilities are very rare. Like, there's only one other witch in her coven that is a lunar witch. And they're, like, increasingly rare, and they're valued by the coven. So they ask her to go study with a mentor in a new city that's, like, far away from her family. And she's lived kind of a sheltered lifestyle up until now. She's, like, been with her family. So she's initially very excited when she gets there to learn more about her abilities and, like, meeting people. And she's going to stay with a family called the Blakes. And they're kind of like important people in the coven. The dad is an elder in the coven. And whenever she gets there, she kind of starts realizing that maybe not everyone around her has the best motives or has her best interests at heart. And she starts to uncover some, like, dark secrets, as the summary says. And then that's kind of where we are in the story.
Ooh, interesting. I feel like we're getting like little hints about things. I don't want to like say anything, so basically just go read it to find out for yourself. But that seems really interesting. I really feel like you've put a lot into this, and I know we talked about earlier that you're a planner. Was there anything that kind of sparked the idea for the Witch's Stone?
Yeah, so the way I came up with the idea, I think, is a little bit unusual for how I come up with ideas now, because I never really, like, I've always been an artistic person, but I never really considered myself a particularly creative person, if that makes any sense. So, like, coming up with original ideas wasn't something that, like, I never thought that I was really good at. So, like I said, it was kind of a personal challenge. Like, if I could write a comic, what would it be like? So whenever I came up with the idea for the Witch's Stone, I was like actively trying to come up with an idea. So I like actually sat down and like, because it's a webtoon, I was writing down like webtoons that I really liked. And then I made a list of like characters from webtoons that I really liked. And then
Ooh, I want
yeah,
to see this list.
I don't even know where it is. And I don't even remember what was on it. Cause that was like, it's probably about a year and a half ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I made an actual list, like a organized person. And then I like picked out the things that they had in common or like my favorite things about them. And I kind of came to the conclusion that I like stories that are, well, obviously romance, love it. And then like I really like stories that have a little bit of a dark aspect to them, a little bit creepy maybe, a little bit thrillery.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, a little bit dark.
Like I was like, are we
Um,
talking like serial killer or we're talking like monsters and ghouls? But I got it.
all of it, all of that,
Yeah,
any of
yeah, a
that,
little bit of
like it.
both.
All of those things. So I was like, well, what would fit into that kind of genre? What could I even write about that would fit this? And at the time, I was watching the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix, which
Mhm.
I
Like
love.
the new one, right?
Yeah, this the dark one on. I think it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah, the real dark one. And which I loved it, like up until the last the last half of the last season was not great, but besides
Ignoring
that, it
that
was
one part, like everything else.
just ignore the entire ending, but the rest of it was awesome. So I was like, a witch story that would fit this perfectly, and then that's kind of where it started. Like that's what sparked it. It was a very organized inspiration spark. It wasn't
Yeah.
very spontaneous, which as a someone who like I said, I didn't really consider myself to be super creative. um I think that it's like something that you have to like work, like you can work on it, you can learn how to be more inspired, because now after writing the series, like things just like will come to me, like I'll see something or hear something and I'll be like, oh, that's an idea, which
You,
like that never happened to me before.
you've unlocked that part of your brain. Your brain's like, now the
Yeah,
world, I see it
yeah.
differently.
I leveled up my creativity.
That's so cool. That's really cool. Actually, I really like that too, leveling up your creativity. Because I think everybody, to a relative degree, has like a certain, let's say, starting point in their creativity. But you actually, it's like anything, you have to use it to improve it. So I think
Yeah,
that's really cool. And I like the fact that you brought out how, as you've been working on it, now ideas are just sparked from the most random things. I think that's so cool because I was kind of a little bit of the same. Like when I was doing conventions and stuff, like selling at anime conventions, like I only did fan art. There's like other things that go into that, but my main reason why I only focused on that is because I could never like think of what my own characters would look like. Like I could think of them in like a literary form, but in like a physical form, it just wouldn't happen. But as I've been like working on my own webtoon, I'm like, oh, this is so much easier than it was like 5 years ago. So I think that's really
yeah,
cool. Like that. And I like the fact that you also, since you were just starting out, you took like the concept and things that you liked and just built upon that. Like that, I think that's a nice place to start.
yeah,
So for any
yeah.
beginners out there, take an assessment of what you like, take an assessment of things that you don't like, and then kind of like figure out what would make the best story for you if you're trying to get into making a webtoon.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Which, to be honest, as I was reading your webtoon too, I felt like there was just so much work put into it. And already, as we've been talking, I feel like the world you've crafted has been like so concrete. Can you walk us through some of your world building process? Like you mentioned already Covens, and you mentioned Luna having a rare ability. Like, in episode 1, I feel like you talked about all of that stuff. So I feel like you had to work out a lot of the world building history beforehand. Like, can you walk us through that
Right.
process?
Yeah. Being a planner, I had like the stuff that's really crucial for the story, like, had it all figured out beforehand. I don't, how did I get there though? I don't know. Like, I think it started with plot,
Hmm.
because like I said, when I was writing, I was very plot focused. So like, it started with plot, and then I'll be like, well, I want this to happen, but why? Why would this happen? How could we get there? And that's kind of like the how my world came together. It was just like, how do I get to that, to this part of the plot? How do I make that make sense? And like, I think with like my magic system, if you can even call it that, it's a soft magic system, definitely.
Hmm.
Um, like, I think you always have to kind of think about that if you're going to have a magic system in a comic, because if you accidentally make a character just like way too overpowered, like, you're going to have a hard time making them have any problems,
Yeah.
like, that makes sense.
It's the
So,
Superman issue. It's like,
right.
was that
Yeah,
even
yeah.
an issue for him, or was it just him being dumb?
Is he just dumb? Yeah. So,
Which is
exactly.
which is
So, like,
which is sad because, like, I don't know if you know this, like Superman's like actually a genius. Like he has like over like intelligence, like
right.
his intelligence is beyond like what we humans have. And so it's just like really
Yeah.
sad when you watch or read his series and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
And just dumb. Yeah. Yeah, but like, so I was concerned about that, like, from the beginning, that I needed to make sure that I had some kind of rules in place from the beginning, some kind of structure, so that it made sense for them to have actual problems, or
yeah.
else it doesn't make sense. So like my characters, like, they're all the characters in the comic are witches. They all have, different magic abilities, but I decided to make it so that it's like very specific. So like Luna, for example, being a lunar witch, she's got like kind of sleep and dream
Hmm.
abilities.
Hmm.
And she has, so something that's going to be important, like, for her development is kind of, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Like, she has it's kind of like an oracle, I suppose. Like, the moon is like this entity that like knows everything and sees everything,
Hmm.
and only communicates with lunar witches, and that's kind of why she's an asset to her coven. Because
Oh, okay.
she has like access to this knowledge that could be useful for their coven for leadership
World
reasons and things.
domination.
Yeah, well, domination, all that. So like, her specific abilities are that, she can tap into this like source of knowledge, and then she's got sleep and dream abilities.
Hmm.
The Blakes very specifically do just teleportation. Like, they can teleport themselves, or they can teleport objects. But even that, like, I had to put a limitation on it, because like, there were so many things that'd be like, well, why would they do that if they can teleport?
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like their limitation is that, um they have to know where something is, or have like a visual reference to be able to teleport. So like, they can only teleport to like places they've been before. And they can only teleport objects if they know where they are, like if they can picture it in their mind. So that's kind of the approach that I took with my world building, like, just trying to make sure that the story would make sense.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And I like that you mentioned having a soft magic system too. The story lends itself to have a lot of flexibility with that sort of magic system. And then yet you can still like establish firm guidelines for how things work without, it being overly complicated. Because I think a lot of people, when they're making their magic systems, they feel like they have to do soft or they have to do hard. And like a lot of people will think that hard magic systems are sometimes like the better way to go because the rules are established, but like locking yourself into those rules can be really hard as you're writing. So I think that's
Yeah.
interesting too, for like things developed as you're working on the plot. And I think that's one of the most important things for new creators, especially. Like, have a decent idea of your plot, because things will come up if you don't have it, if you're not hyper focused or have like an outside perspective sort of thing going on where you can like be very objective and critical about your work, those plot holes that's where they're going to fall in at. So, which
Right.
again, you like finished your entire series already, so you basically know everything,
I
know
know
how it
every.
works. Yes, you're the OG Lunar Witch. Like, let's be honest here.
That's horrible.
It's been revealed. It's been revealed, y'all. Jess is the moon in her own comic. Like,
yeah, like when it comes to world building though, like I'm not super interested in it. Like I know there are a lot of people who like they really love world building and they love making these really elaborate fantasy worlds with like, you know, everything planned out and they like write their own languages. And like this it's not something that I was super interested in. So that's kind of why I have rules. Like my magic system has rules, but do I know like where everybody's like magic comes from? No. Is it going to ever come up? No. You know, it's like
right.
my story. I wanted it to be more character focused and like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they are witches. They have magical powers, but like that's not like their like main personality trait. Like that's not what's moving the plot
Yeah.
forward, you know.
Your characters aren't just like, I'm a witch, and like every time they show up, that's all they say, like, I'm a witch,
Yeah,
and I'm doing
we're not.
witchy things.
Yeah, we're not having any like witch battles. You know, like we don't need to know like power scaling or anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of my world building. And then like I wanted it to be, because I intentionally wanted to not work on this comic forever.
Yeah.
Because it's my first project. I set it in like, you know, the modern real world, except that there are witches, but with magical powers.
Yeah.
But like I wanted the reader to be able to be like, oh yeah, they're at a building, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand they're in a city, they're in a park.
You don't have to
like,
explain where they ever are. Like the readers can just look at the comic and be like, yeah, that's a bathroom. That's a living room. Like,
yeah, exactly. I did that intentionally because like I didn't, it's my first project. I didn't want to work on it forever. I do really admire people who like have the dedication to design like these whole elaborate worlds. Like I think it's amazing. But it's not I'm particularly interested in doing. So yeah, that's kind of how my world building came about.
Yeah, there are a lot of series that are Webtoon originals that don't necessarily focus on the world building. Like there's aspects of it here and there, but that's not the main focus of the story. And so like they'll mention things when it's needed, but other than that, they focus on the characters. And so I think that's a really cool way that you've taken your story, just in the sense that I feel when people are starting to learn, they do really focus on world building instead of just crafting a good story. Like, what's the history of this world from 3,000 years ago? And it's kind of like, will this ever come up? No, it won't. So why are you working on that? Work on like your characters' relationships, work on, you know, how your character is going to obtain their goal or how you're going to stop them from obtaining their goal. Like work on something, that will help you in the long run. Cause I love world building. Like I definitely would be one of those people that would sit and like try and figure out how to make a language for my story, or one of those people that wants to like have the battle of like year one for like the great kingdom of Asgard or something like that. But like, if it doesn't really apply to the story, it's all well and fun. But as you said, do you want to be working on this for forever? Because world building takes a lot of work. So,
Right.
and I mean, I guess we could say from the fact that you've already finished your first season, like, it's doing you good.
I think it's working out okay. It's working out okay.
So speaking of characters, I do really feel like all of your characters, even like little side characters who unfortunately may never come back again, have really special personalities. Can you kind of talk about how you make your characters special?
Yeah. So I think I just try to make sure my characters sound like real people. Like I think dialogue plays a big part in that. Like I make try to make sure they sound like real people, and I try to keep in mind like it was very difficult in the beginning because I thought I had a grasp on my characters' personalities, and then
Hmm.
as I was writing, I'd be like reading my script and I'd be like, he wouldn't say that, like I had written that he would say this, but he wouldn't say that. Now that I know,
Right.
definitely wouldn't. So like, um, it's some like I think that that's something you kind of get a grasp on as you go. But yeah, giving them specific personalities and like a specific way that they talk, I think goes a long way into developing your characters. Like Caster, for example, like whenever I write his like dialogue, like
Hmm.
I'll be reading my script and I'll be like, this is way too wordy for him. Like he wouldn't say all of this.
Hmm.
So I'll have to like cut it out, and I'll like a lot of times I'll just shorten the sentence. Like what's the shortest way that I could say this? Because he tends to talk like short answer, short answer, short answer. And then if you prod him enough, he will give you a long answer, you know?
Oh, that's
uh,
really
whereas
cool.
Whereas like Luna is much more wordy. Like she'll say, she will just say whatever comes to her mind.
Yeah.
Um,
She
mhm,
seems very hard on the sleeve type,
right.
or at least to
Um,
me. I mean, you may have a
yeah,
different perspective. You're the creator.
yeah, I think so too. I think that's accurate. Luna is very hard on the sleeve. She's very curious, and like she doesn't always like say the right things. Like she's not very good at judging other people or situations sometimes.
Hmm.
She's a little bit awkward in that way. But yeah, she kind of just says whatever comes to her mind. And like all those things when I wrote my script, and I hadn't drawn anything and I was like, trying to make it all fit together and work. Um, I didn't really like I thought I knew, but I didn't really know specifically like how they would act. And then when I started actually drawing it and writing their, rewriting their dialogue, I guess I should say, um, it like it became way more concrete as I was going, like what their personalities would be like.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as you work on the project, you get to know them even better. So, what's your concept of them originally? Like, it gets tweaked a little bit. It probably is still sort of the same, just like with those few little adjustments, sort of. Which, speaking of Luna, I feel like Luna is probably my favorite character. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because she's from like a small town or something. Maybe it's her like naive concepts of the world or something. I don't know what it is, but I really like Luna and I feel like she's really easy to connect with, especially for the audience. Was this like just by chance or did you like design this? How did Luna's creation come about?
I'm glad that you say that. I mean, I tried to make her relatable, because I wanted her to be like the like reader's guide through what was happening. Like you're on this journey with Luna. So I wanted her to be relatable, and likable, even though she's like not totally perfect. So I tried, and I'm glad that I'm glad that you say that. I'm glad it's working. Um, so, but yeah, I specifically wrote her as kind of like an outsider coming into this politically charged
Mm-hmm.
coven
Mm-hmm.
world. She's familiar with what's going on. Like, she's a witch. She's always been one. She knows what's up, but she's not been in this particular environment. So I specifically wrote her that way so that the reader could go along with her and kind of learn what's going on. And I think that probably makes her relatable just because you're going on the journey with her, figuring things out at the same time. And I tried to make her a little bit feisty because I like characters that are a little bit feisty. Like, I find that cool and relatable, like a real person, you know?
Yeah.
So that was my goal with her, and I hope it's working.
No, I think it definitely is. Like, she comes across really well, and I do kind of agree with the idea of making her personality more well-rounded. Like, she is a nice character, but she will like clap back on people. Like, not like
Yeah.
not like a Lizzo or a Cardi B clap back, but you know.
Yeah, she's generally like very sweet and kind, but yeah, she's got a little bit of feistiness, you know. I like that about her.
Yeah, she's super fun. And I like the fact that we all have found out that like this was a mastermind decision. Like, this is why you're like the world famous Jess. Like, decisions like this. That's what makes it all worth it.
Yeah, it's because, like I said, first project, I was like, what's the easiest way to introduce a world to people who don't know about it? Just have the main character somebody who doesn't know about it.
Like, just let everybody catch up with her. Yeah, that's smart. And that's an easy way to write too. I think that's a good suggestion for honestly, it's a good suggestion for anybody. Like, you can have a character that can reasonably, logically make sense why they don't know what's going on, then I think that just serves the story so much better, especially if it's tackling concepts that people don't know. Like, anything. Just do that. I think that would help so many people, because sometimes people throw you into the story and there's like all of this exposition and it feels like you're reading a dictionary and you're just like, I'm only halfway through the first episode and I don't care about any of this. So
it really helps to avoid info dumps if your main character doesn't know what's going on, because then the reader can learn it along with them and it seems natural and like you don't have to dump too much info.
Yeah, agreed. Because even in real life, when people don't know things, a lot of times you don't necessarily like send them a manifesto to explain like what's going on. You're just like, yeah, that's XYZ. And then like as time goes on, maybe like in a natural conversation, if it comes up again, like you'll elaborate on it more. Because 3/4 of the time people don't care sometimes about the questions they ask. They'll be like, so what's that? And they just want you to be like quick, like, oh, that's a lawn. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lawnmower. Oh, okay. It looked like a horse. Well, that's a lawnmower.
Looks like a horse.
All of my like analogies today are off the wall.
That makes perfect sense.
So, you know, I think also while the Witch's Stone is so unique, I do definitely see the inspirations from Sabrina, which before we get into this, I want to know, is Luna's hair natural or does she have it dyed that way?
I was worried you were going to ask me that question.
I have it here in my notes, and I meant to ask it earlier, but I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, let me ask this.
I was like, man, I hope he doesn't ask about her hair because I have no idea. See, like my first thought, you know, whenever I designed her was like, yeah, it's obviously dyed. And then like, as I've gone along, I'm like, but it's so like, that's like her recognizable thing is her hair. So like, if she ever didn't have it, then she wouldn't be her. So I don't know.
It wouldn't be Luna.
Right. It would just be a blonde girl. I don't know.
Man, Jess.
So yeah.
I mean, it doesn't affect the plot, so we'll let you slide. But these are the questions we want answers to. And your next Q&A, I want you to have this figured out.
We'll tentatively say that it's died. But it's
tentatively.
all died from birth.
Okay, died from birth. She was cursed as a baby, and the curse was that the ends of her hair would be green.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh man, that was like a little side tangent. So, getting back on track, like I can definitely see that you pulled some inspiration as we brought out from Sabrina from Netflix. Like, can you walk us through inspiration in general? I feel like a lot of people kind of get confused. They think sometimes inspiration is stealing or copying from another individual. Like, can you explain the difference?
Yeah, well, I'll try. But yeah, I agree.
Well, in your
People,
opinion.
for my opinion, yeah, I think a lot of people really get hung up on it. Like, I know personally, like, whenever I was started writing, I told you how I started. Like, I made a list of comics I like and characters I like. Well, obviously, especially the characters, it's following a lot of, like, tropes, you know? Like,
Hmm.
so I really got hung up in the beginning on, like, is this original enough? Like,
Hmm.
if I, and at some point, I just was kind of like, you know what? I like it. I'm going to write it that way because I like it that way. But yeah, on the surface, if you just look at, like, my comic is, young witch learning about her coven and, like, the politics of her coven and her, her abilities, exploring the world kind of thing. It's
Hmm.
the same premise as Sabrina. Like, even, like, I don't know if you're familiar with, like the old Sabrina TV show,
Like
Say it's
the cartoon or the real
any
life
of
one?
it, all of it.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with both of them.
Yeah, yeah. Like, that's what the premise of Sabrina is. Same thing.
Hmm.
But, like, with different characters, like, I've inserted different characters, and the plot's not. I don't think the plot's anywhere near what Sabrina in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was doing.
Hmm.
And my comic isn't as dark as that. It's a little dark, but not as dark as that. So, like, whenever you read it, I don't think anyone would read it and be like, well, this is Sabrina.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I do
uh,
not get that at all.
yeah, on the surface level, young witch exploring her learning about her magical abilities, and learning about her coven and things like that. Like, it's the same, but in
Hmm.
practice, whenever you actually read it and you've made a whole different plot, it's not. And I think unless you actually, if you take a concept and you actually, like, sit down to plagiarize it, then you'll plagiarize it. But if you don't do that, if you just try to write something from that premise, you're not going to end up with something that's copying, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes complete sense because there are other stories that are similar to Sabrina, like that came before and came after. Like as you were talking, I was thinking about Winx Club, and like literally it's basically the same premise. Like Bloom finds her um finds out that she's a fairy or whatever, and then she like has to navigate like becoming a fairy and like whatever. And then I thought about like Sailor Moon, like same concept. She finds
Yeah.
out she's a magical girl and she's navigating the life of being a magical girl while coming to the figuring out everything. Like when you peel back all of those layers, like there's a lot of things at its core that are similar, but they've all managed to find success even though they're so similar. Like, and they could have all been inspired from like the same concept, even like we were talking about Sabrina. Let's just say Sabrina was the OG and she came first. Like they all could have been inspired from that, and yet despite that inspiration, they're just all so different, and there's room for them all on the shelf. Like none of
Yeah.
them are just like, oh well, I was here first. No, like they each have their own thing. Oh, and speaking of other like Witch, I don't know if you're familiar with that. That one's kind of old, but man, no, actually you probably should know about that. You're a little older than me, but like Witch is also similar. There was all these girls. I don't, were they witches? I guess they were, but they had fairy wings. But anyway,
No?
yeah, yeah, it was a show. It
Nah.
was a cartoon. Hold on, we're gonna take like a 5 minute intermission here, and I'm gonna pull this up.
Yeah, I want to find it.
So this is actually like super similar to
Actually,
Sabrina.
this looks really familiar, but I don't really remember it. But it looks really familiar.
Okay. Oh, well,
I feel
there's
like I've
no,
seen.
like, Charm is another example too. Uh, yeah, I feel like you might have seen it. It wasn't super popular. Like, it popped up for a minute on like Disney or something, and then like it just disappeared. Like, it was cast out into like
Yeah.
the void. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember what I was saying, but
But yeah, you can take a similar concept, and if you put in different characters and, you plot it yourself, you
mm,
plot whatever comes to your mind, it's not going to turn out the same. It's not going to be the same story. In
right,
my
right. Yeah, yeah. So, with that being the case, do you have anything that you think people shouldn't take inspiration from? Is there, or is like everything on the table, in your opinion?
in my opinion, I can't really think of anything. I think that anything can spark inspiration,
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, I think so too. I
I think
I
I think
think
anything.
there might be like a few things that for like very specific people or very specific like organizations that, they would not want you to copy it just because of, you know, its value to them. So like that would be
Mhm.
the only thing I would say be careful about. Like if anything has any sort of
Right.
like sacred heritage or sacred, connection to a particular group, like, if you do take inspiration from it, like you might get some backlash, but I think everything's pretty much on the table.
Yeah,
So
I
you,
think
oh, go
speaking
ahead.
of, I think if I remember correctly, I think the Church of Satan sued the Sabrina Netflix show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So maybe that's what you're talking about. So like there was
Yeah,
a
yeah. Like I feel like there's very particular instances where like you could offend people depending on what you like what you made could have been fine in of itself, but if it's from something that people is really near and dear to their heart,
right,
like you're taking a risk, like it just is what
right.
it is.
Yeah, I do agree with that. If it's something that's like, very religiously or like culturally significant to a group of people, I mean, I think you can take inspiration from it
Mm,
if you make it like different enough,
mm.
that it's not really the same thing, you could get away from, offending, possibly offending people. But yeah, I agree. You do have to be careful with that for sure.
Yeah. So, like, if you decide to do it, like, even with political stuff too, like, if you decide to do it, that can't just you'll have to deal with the consequences.
Right.
So, it's kind of like you have to weigh what you're taking inspiration from sometimes. Cause I know even with like certain mythos that are attributed to very specific cultures, they don't care. like, like
Yeah.
their stories get retold over and over again, and I shouldn't say they don't care because I don't know, but it seems like they don't care. So that would be the
Mhm.
only thing I would advise for other people. But while we're in the realm, so we know that you take inspiration from Sabrina, and it seems like things that you watch. Are there any other things that really inspire you? Let's get to
Yeah.
know hobbyish Jess a little more. What else inspires you?
Well, now that I've like leveled up my creativity, there are all kinds of things like spark.
Are we talking
And
like a pencil rolls down on the floor and you're like,
not
eureka?
really that. Well, I have an example actually
Oh,
that's like
okay.
specifically related to you.
No.
So, so like a while back, we were in like a Discord chat, and I think you were talking to Minsky about skincare. Do you remember this?
Yes, yes. I love
Yeah,
skincare people.
yeah. You were talking about skincare, and you said something about like however old you are, that's how long it takes your skin to like regenerate, to like turn over.
Yeah, that's a
Right? Is that
generalization, people. But yeah, that's accurate. Mhm.
generalization? But you said something about that to Minsky. Shout out to the Minsky. Uh,
Yes. He has
and
a YouTube. Go check it out.
yeah, and my brain was like, what if you totally changed what you looked like every 30 days? What if like you
Ooh.
just shifted like every 30 days, however old, well, and it could go with your age, like however old you are, however many days you shapeshift, right?
Yeah.
Um, And then my brain was like, what would that kind of person be like? What kind of job would they have? And then I was like, they'd be a great assassin because, like, you can't find them because
No,
they don't look like.
never.
And my brain was like, well, how would if you were writing this character, how would the audience know that it's the same character if they look different all the time? It's like, well, maybe they have like some kind of like tattoo or like distinctive birthmark, like on their neck or something.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
So does
that.
so building off of that, just for like a second, let's go down this rabbit hole. So like, is it just the face? Like, do they keep like the same skin tone? Does their body change? Can they become like a female? Like now my brain's like, what?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
interesting.
Like, this is interesting. I'm not planning on writing this, by the way. So if anyone wants to steal this, like knock yourself out. Yeah, like I don't know. The possibilities are endless. You could change anything.
Oh,
But like it's
interesting.
just like little things like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
and I get a lot of inspiration from like random YouTube videos. Like I really like spooky stuff. like those YouTube videos that are like the top 10 creepiest unsolved mysteries or like I was watching one recently that was like I don't remember the name of the YouTube creator, but he was doing this video series on what he called the conspiracy iceberg,
Mm-hmm.
which they weren't all conspiracies. They were just like theories basically about random weird things. Where he like summarized all these like theories about things that you've probably never heard of, right?
Yeah,
And
probably.
yeah, all these things that like no one's ever heard of. And one of the things that he was saying was like, do you remember when there was that tsunami? I hope I remember these details correctly. There was that tsunami in Japan, and they had like a problem with a nuclear power plant over there, and it was about to melt down. I don't remember
Like
when that happened.
vaguely. I feel like I was in like middle school or high school or something when that happened, maybe.
Right? Yeah, it's been a little bit. It's been a little bit.
Yeah. Because I remember like there was this big tsunami and then like it was like the first time we here in my state, I'm not gonna say which state because yeah, it was like the first time we had ever heard of tsunamis and so there was like posters everywhere about them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah, you think you remember? So, like, the theory was that this, like, conspiracy theory or whatever. So, like, these engineers in Japan, like, had to figure out how to rapidly cool this nuclear reactor so that there wasn't a nuclear meltdown. And they, like, came up with the idea to use, like, ocean water, right? I think is what happened. I think this is what happened. Don't, like, nobody fact check me. That's not the point. That's not the point. But anyway, the theory was that whenever they did this, it like opened like some kind of dimensional rip, right? Interdimensional rip.
Interesting.
And yeah, and it was just this stupid like conspiracy theory, dumb video, dumb thing. And my brain was like, what if that happened? What would come through the tear? Like what if this were a story, who would the characters be?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how inspiration comes to me now. It's just like random weird stuff that like, and like before I started writing The Witch's Stone, that never happened to me ever. And now I've got like 10 story ideas like scrawled down in my sketchbook and, typed up in various files on my computer because things just strike me now. Yeah.
Are we like, are you leaning towards doing another webtoon after this?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it. If I don't hate it by the time The Witch's Stone is over, I'm still enjoying it now, and I'm a year in, so I think I'm gonna enjoy it. I have another story, another supernatural romance story lined up.
I'm very, very excited. Like, I just love your writing style. And so, like, when we were talking earlier in the interview, I was kind of like, I wonder if she's going to stop webtoons. But now I'm super excited for your next series. Like, I know that's a ways away. Like, you said we have 2 more seasons, but now I'm kind of stoked to see, like, how you progress from here.
Yeah, and, like, I'm excited about that one, too, because, like, the Witch's Stone, I mean, I like it. I like the way it's going. But I never intended it intended for it to be like, you know, my like masterpiece, like, because it was just it's my beginning project.
Yeah.
But I've learned so much over the course of making it that I'm like really excited to do my next project, you know, because I've learned a lot about pacing and like things that like you just really can't learn until you like actively do it.
Yeah, I think for me, as I've been reading it too, I really feel like the story, every episode seems to improve to me, like on something. It might even be really small, like the expressions are more clear, or like the lettering reads more easily, or something like. But I just feel, because when I was prepping for this, I was trying to like look at the story critically, and I was just like, you know what, it's doing all these really amazing things, and it seems to improve every episode. So I just love it. So I can only.
I'm learning a lot. Like I think my art style, which I think this all the time. I think I hadn't really drawn digitally like much at all whenever I started the comic. I think my art style is finally starting to kind of like level out, you know. But I think that all the time, and then it keeps going, and it never levels out. But hopefully by the time I start that next project, you know, I'll have a more consistent art style, and you know, have better like character consistency and things like that. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You really don't realize how hard it is to draw the same character over and over again until you have to do it. Like when I was drawing in the past, like I would do One Piece and I'd be like, oh man, I sketched that face like so good. And then now that I'm working on Frostbite, I'm just like, crap, he doesn't look the same as he did in this other panel in the same episode.
Yeah, and I really struggled with that in the beginning. And it, you know, it's probably lack of experience, you know, a lot of that. But like, I really struggled with it, and I was like, how do I make these people look the same? And then eventually I was just like, you know what, I'm going to try my best, but if I limit myself too much, then like my art's not going to progress. So I kind of just let it go, you know?
Yeah. Not to quote Elsa or anything, but
yeah, not to quote Elsa, but I kind of just decided at some point, like, I'm going to try my best to make them as consistent as I can, but like, you know, what happens.
Yeah, and I think because all of the characters seem to have like very unique color palettes and whatnot, that even if they do look somewhat different, like I always know who Luna is. Like it doesn't matter. I'm just like, unless Luna has like a twin that shows up one day, like if this turns into like a telenovela or like a soap opera, like I'll always know who Luna is.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have my character color palettes, like they've been consistent the whole time. So yeah, I think that probably does help. I know, you know, Castor and Pollux are twins, right? So I've had like one comment that was like, I can't remember what their names are. I was like, oh crap, maybe that wasn't the best idea, but you know.
It's like,
which they're twins. They're twins, but they do have different color palettes, just to clarify for anybody who's not read it before. They do look different, but like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best idea to make them like look the same with different colors, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a problem per se, but that could just be me. Maybe, I don't know. But I guess if the people are saying they have an issue, maybe that would be something to consider. Like, I'm thinking about, I don't know if you've ever seen Oran High School Host Club.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, they have twins in that series, and you can't tell the difference between them, to be honest. Like, they're yeah, their hair is parted differently. So if you're like really astute, or at least, okay, I can't really tell the difference between the two of them. Let me rephrase, because I can hear people now. I know which one is which.
Someone's gonna at you.
Yeah. But like, to be honest, it didn't really matter. Like, it doesn't necessarily affect the story. And I feel like the story, when it needs to tell us like which character is which, like they actively are like, this is Hikaru, this is Kaoru type thing. Like there's no confusion unless you're just like, I'm saying this nicely, an idiot. Like
yeah, they said it. They said who it is.
Yeah. So like this is them, if you can see that. Like they literally are the same character, just redrawn.
Oh yeah, they look the same. I see.
Yeah, like no different hair color, no different eye color. Literally, like they clone stamped this character.
Twins. Yeah, with Castor and Pollux, I made them have different color palettes, and like they obviously have like drastically different personalities. So I don't think it's that people are having a hard time telling like which one is which. But they don't remember which one is named which thing. It's the Webtoon name thing, where you're like, what's that character's name again?
I'm gonna be honest, and I'm going to out Poe right now and Blue. Let me rephrase, and I'm gonna out them both. But we all kind of got into Webtoons through Unordinary, and so when we would talk about it as a group, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, Serafina," and they'd be like, "Who?" And then
who? The purple hair girl.
Yeah, that's what I would say, and they were like, "Oh, I've been calling her this," and I'm just like. But they say her name all the time, and they're just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really common with webcomics. Like, the character, but you don't you might not remember exactly what their name is, but you know who they are.
Right. I think that is kind of the benefit of the comic, though. It's like when you meet somebody in real life, you can't remember their name, but you know what they look like. I mean, I read people all the time, and I'm just like, "Oh, I don't know your name. Maybe it'll come up in conversation."
Yeah, it never does.
I have a good segue that I always introduce my so if it's me and Poe, I have this thing specifically where I set up Poe to introduce himself so that he asks for their name because I didn't say it. So I'll be like, "This is my friend Poe." And then I'm like, "Now you take over, Poe," and be like, "Hello," and your name.
Good plan. Yeah.
Yes. So if that ever happens to you,
whenever you don't know someone's name and you're trying to introduce them to someone else, it's like,
But see, they've got to be quick. That's the thing. If they're awkward about it, then it's awkward. But if they're fast, if they're like, "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm so and so, and your name," So if somebody does that, for all of you people out there who need life skill lessons, that is what the person is doing. They're forcing you to ask for the other person's name. This is such a side tangent. We're going to jump off of this topic.
This turned into life advice.
Right. Did you have anything else to say on inspiration?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think you broke it down super well. And we were kind of talking about this already. Webtoons are just so much hard work. From the pre-production planning to the scripting phase, all of that stuff. Why did you decide to specifically focus on creating a webtoon? I know we talked about your sister telling you to just do it, but after you got into the thick of it and saw how much work it was, what kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. It was kind of a personal challenge. I was kind of like, I don't think I can do this, but maybe I can do it. And then once I started doing it, it is a lot of work, but I do really enjoy it. I've always really enjoyed building things up, researching things and building a following is fun,
social media is such a job. I did not realize all of these influencers and them that are out there now, whenever I look at them, I'm just like, you're doing some work because I can't even get to 300 and you're up here juggling millions. So man, I did not realize it's such a job.
Yeah, there's a strategy on each social media platform getting into social media. There's a lot to it. And Webtoon is the same way. There's a lot to it. But I've just honestly just really enjoyed it. And I think that's what's kept me doing it.
Yes. Well, that's cool. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything overly complicated. Just enjoying it seems like a really good reason to keep doing it, in my opinion. So
yeah, and if I don't feel like, I try to work on my comic a little bit every day, something for it. Yeah. If I don't feel like working on my comic itself, I will work on a TikTok or an Instagram reel or something like that. So to where I'm still working on something, but it gives me a little bit of a break where I'm not working on the comic all the time.
I see. That's a nice little balance. I think the fact that you have your whole story finished too allows you to have a lot more flexibility in what you need to do. You don't have to always worry about what's coming next, or I'm sure you have to improvise sometimes to make things work, or maybe, I don't know. I'm assuming. but I feel like that probably takes a big burden off of your chest.
Yeah, definitely. I would say if you have a really busy schedule and you want to make a webcomic, definitely write it out. Like, or at least outline it, so that aren't, it's not crunch time and you're still like writing, trying to figure out what the episode's going to be,
Yeah.
which, I mean, you don't have to, but I think it makes it way easier. As well as having a buffer when you start. That's like what everybody says, but
So like on the buffer sitch, like I talk to so many people and they always recommend having like a 3-episode buffer. So you like post 3 episodes and then you have a 3-episode buffer. So you have to finish like 6 episodes beforehand. Would you say like 3 episodes is reasonable, or do you think people should like prep more than 3 episodes, like maybe a 5-episode buffer and like do 8 episodes before? Like, do you have any advice on that?
I think it has to do with your schedule and your upload schedule. If for me, I update on the 15th and the 30th of every month, so twice a month. So if I have a 3-episode buffer, then I have a month and a half, of episodes done. And so for me, I have a 3-episode buffer, and sometimes like one will post while I'm still working on that third, and I'll have two that are completely ready, but that's still like plenty of time for me. But if you want to do weekly or something like that, you would probably want to have more buffer because, you don't know what's going to happen. And like my schedule is pretty consistent, like I just go to work and then I come home and then I go to work and come home. It's pretty consistent every day.
Right.
So it's not really hard for me to schedule out time to work on my comic. But if you have a real hectic schedule, you might want to consider having more of a buffer. And it's not really, for me, like it's good for the readers for you to have a consistent schedule for posting. But really, like, it's just good for your mental health working on it. Because, like, if you're, like, panicking all the time to get stuff done, it's not going to be that fun,
Yeah, and
like,
the
it makes
story
it way
probably
more
could
enjoyable.
suffer.
Right, it makes it way more enjoyable for me that I don't have to, like, rush or, like, meet a deadline. So, yeah.
Which, the deadlines are self-imposed because, like, nobody's, like, coming after you for these things. Like, you're not under contract.
Right, true.
But
That's true.
it does still have a weight to it because, like, all of the research that I've done and a lot of the, like, advice that I've heard from people is, like, being consistent helps to build an audience. And so I think, like, that having that too, like, it does weigh on you when you don't post or you can't make your deadlines. So I guess, like you said, it just depends on your schedule, which is pretty interesting. So I guess everybody just needs to figure out that question for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I post bi-weekly and I have a 3-episode buffer. And like I said, sometimes I'll be working on one I'll be working on one when one posts, so then I'll only have 2 ready to go, but I'm working on that third one. That's my personal strategy.
Yeah. The big brain one here. This is why you're the famous one. This is an inside joke from our Discord. That's why I keep referring to her as being famous. So if you've made it to this point, comment down below that Jess is the famous one. So I'm going to crack up if there's like some comments saying that will like make my day. Is there any other
come from the Discord?
Yes. Is there any other advice that you would give to anybody who's like in the pre-production phase or just preparing, like things that you wish you knew about? Anything else?
I mean, I know it's generic.
Yeah.
Super generic.
We love generic.
My advice is just do it. Like, there's so much that you learn, like, doing it. Like, like I said, pacing is a big one that, like, I didn't understand anything about. And, like, I researched it. I researched pacing. But, like, did I fully understand it? No, not until I started doing it. And like simple things like your workflow and like how you set up all your layers and like your process, like all that stuff, you will only learn it by doing it. And, even if it doesn't work out, you don't get a big, huge following like you wanted, you're going to learn a lot of things. So my advice is to just go for it.
Yeah. And you never know where that effort may lead. Like someone, like it may not be the project that takes off or whatever, but it could be the project that, gives you a lot of different connections, gives you a lot of different, like more reach than you would than if you hadn't done it.
Or
So
and even if none of that happens, you're still going to learn a lot, like that you can apply to your next project, or what you want to do in the future, like, or just your personal artwork going forward. Like,
yeah,
you
you
learn
improve
so
as an
much.
artist. Like so many people look up like tutorials on how to improve and how to get better. Like just make a comic.
Yeah. I think the reason why that is, why making a comic makes your art improve so well, is because it really helps you identify like your weaknesses, because you're drawing
Mhm.
everything. So, like, for
Yes.
example, if you're drawing, you have to draw everything, all kinds of different stuff that you would never think of to draw. And
Right.
then you'll be like, well, my perspective isn't great. Maybe
Hmm.
I should work on perspective. And then you can work on perspective. And then maybe the next episode where you're like, well, I really struggled with hands that episode. Maybe I should do like some hand anatomy studies. And then like you're improving a little bit at a time, like every episode that you make.
Hmm. Hmm. I agree so much with that. Like just from my small little journey that I've started so far, like I came from specifically doing like portrait art where I was just doing like a headshot. And that was like the
Yeah.
bulk of most of my work. So now that like I have to do, maybe like an action pose or something, my brain's just like portrait. And I'm like, no, not portrait.
You mean I have to draw feet? Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. It's like, what are legs? Like, what, how does that work? Or like,
Yeah, I still
it's
struggle
just
with feet.
crazy. Yeah.
I don't understand feet.
And see, another thing too is like I can draw like things that are very stagnant. So like, if someone's walking or like the motion is very limited, but if they're like crouching tiger, hidden dragon type stuff, I'm just like, what?
Oh yeah, yeah. I struggle with that a lot too. I had one scene that was there was a lot of movement in it, and like it took a lot of effort. I learned a lot that episode.
Man. But I mean, to be honest, your comic, like your art is so good. So I mean, I don't see any areas that you struggled in. Like all of it looks really good to me. So I'm just like, you sure about that? You sure you're
That's nice.
struggling?
That's really nice of you. I think it's just the artist thing. Like, you
Yeah.
look at your work and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. Like, you just cringe. I think
Right.
that's just the art. That's just the
Right.
artist thing. Like, whenever
Yeah.
I look at my beginning episodes, I'm like, oh my god, what is this?
Oh, okay. I have questions about that first episode now. Like thinking about it, I was going to ask you about it. And I said, no, I'm not going to ask. So I'm going to leave it alone. Like, I don't know why I opened that box because there was something very particular. I guess since I brought it up, I should just ask now. But when the first panel, when there's that truck, was that an asset or did you draw it? Like, do you remember this?
Yeah, wait, let me think about this a second. Let me remember. I think I drew it, but I struggled a lot with that stupid truck.
Because when I was looking at it, I was just like, I don't know why it just spoke to me so much. I stared at it for like 10 minutes. I was just like, that truck. I
Look at
was
that
like, there's
truck.
something about it. I don't know what it is. I was like, and I literally sat here and was like, is it an asset? Like, what's going on with it? I really
Oh,
wanted to know.
I drew that truck. I struggled with it like immensely because I like vehicles or something. I'm not good at drawing at all. Still not good at. Um,
Well, it
yeah,
looks like a
I think
truck for sure. So I think you did pretty good.
that truck is very rural. Like, you look at it and you're like, this is a farm. This is a rural environment.
Yes,
I
that's
can tell by
exactly
the
what it made me
truck.
think of. It made me think of like childhood. I'm like, oh, that truck.
Yeah, yeah. Fellow country folk here living
Yeah,
out with the truck. Yeah.
yeah. I guess that's the funny thing about it too, is like when I'm reading a comic, the weird things that like I fixate on, I'm just like, that truck. I'm like, I'm gonna ask her about this. So I know that there is a big issue specifically in the Webtoon Canvas Creator community revolving around the rate system. And I kind of want to like address it to an extent, like just in the sense of making the rate system more positive for creators. Because I think creators look at the rate system and they think it's like a judgment on their series when it's
Hmm.
more of a judgment on its popularity and it's not necessarily from a critical or literary standpoint. which,
Right.
I could be wrong in that assumption, but I just feel like a lot of people put so much weight into it. And like with the way that it scales, the Webtoons rating system doesn't scale the way other book systems scale.
Right.
So for you as a creator, like if we're looking at your story critically, like what would you score it personally, like out of 10?
Oh man. I mean, that's really hard. Because like, I mean, I would say, like, in my mind it's average, like it's that it's my first project, so, but like the webtoon scale is way out of whack.
It is, it
Like,
is.
1 to 10 average would be 5, but like it's just way out of whack. Like, average is like what do you think average is on Webtoon Canvas? Like 9?
Yeah, like
Like
9.2, 9.3, like something like higher than 9. Like it's 9 point something. But if we're
yeah.
generalizing, 9.
Yeah, because I mean it's so like the rating system is just silly because like they don't make you read any of it before you can rate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a number scale or a star. It's a star scale, and that's so subjective. Like like they're not gonna get a consistent. Like you might have two people who have the same exact opinion of the comic, but someone might be like, well, that's a 5, and someone might be like, well, that's a 9. So I think it would be better if it had which I don't know. I mean, I don't really pay too much attention to the rating system. Like, I don't really pay attention to it. I don't really care about it that much. Just because I don't think it matters. Like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, it might play into the Webtoon Canvas like top 30 rating for each genre. I'm not sure. There's some kind of algorithm at work there because it doesn't make any sense. Like if you look at the top 30 in any genre, like the subscriber counts will be so different. The amount of like different, the ratings are all different. So like they don't make any sense. So there's got to be some kind of algorithm at play, and I don't know if that rating plays into that for the top 30. But I think that's the only thing that it could possibly affect. So I don't really pay too much attention to it. It would be better if instead of it being a star, like 10 stars or whatever, if it was I don't know what the technical term is, but if you would rate it like or dislike, or rate it like not good, good, very good, something like that, would probably give a more consistent, more useful rating. But I don't know that it matters. So I don't pay too much attention to it. I know a lot of people do pay a lot of attention to it. Like I've seen a lot of people get really upset, like like really upset, like taking to social media, like going nuts. And then I'll go look. I'm like, you have like a 9.5.
Right.
or a 9.
Yeah, I always hear whenever people are talking about it, they're like, but on Webtoons it scales high. And I'm like, what? Like a rating's a rating. Like, to be honest, like from my experience, like I used to really be into Goodreads. So like I've read like a lot of those reviews that people leave, and those things sometimes are like manifestos. They're like thesis papers and whatnot, why they don't like the series or why it's good or whatever. And so just from that experience in of itself, the rating system literally to me is, like you said, a like or a dislike button. Like they could open up your series, look at your art and be like, no, I don't like this art, thumbs down. Like that has no bearing on like if it's a good story. It has no bearing on like your technical skills as an artist or as a comic maker, because there's plenty of famous comics that like didn't necessarily have the best art, but like they're laughing all the way to the bank sort of thing. And so I think people get hung up on that, and I'm just like, it doesn't really matter. Like your comic could be a 0, but if you have 1,000 patrons, like which would you prefer? Would you prefer a 10 rating, or would you prefer 1,000 patrons? Like,
yeah, and I mean, and I think that readers, like people who are not creators on Canvas, would probably rate series differently than creators will. Like I know
definitely.
like who know how much work goes into everything, like they'll generally, if they read a Canvas comic, they're giving that baby a 10 because they know, unless it's just like extremely like offensive or something, like it's getting a 10 because they know how much work goes into it. But like a reader, they'd be like, well, this is average. Average is 5. And like to a creator, that's like, oh my God, a 5. Burn it down.
Right. And so that's why I'm like, people need to separate the this isn't a reflection on your work. This reflection more so on like the masses opinion of your comic. Like it's not a Critics' Choice Award. Like you're not, nobody's going to be like, oh yes, and we give out the award for the best rated series in the thriller genre to Hobbish.comics.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think most stories, because for me, on a scale, like no story is ever like a 9 or a 10 to me. Like if your stories, unless it's like world changing, and what I mean by that is like something like where the masses come behind it or something that like impacts society, like those are like 10s. Like Pride and Prejudice would be a 10. Like things like, literary classics would be a 10 because like one, those series have survived for hundreds of years through centuries. So that makes it worth reading. Like, could you say your series is worth that? And that's why I feel like people don't necessarily assess the rating system correctly and people get upset about it, especially new creators. And I'm like, I mean, it's not a big deal.
I understand why people get upset because, it is a lot of work and you put a lot of your like blood, sweat, and tears into this thing for someone to look at it for 2 seconds and be like, meh, 2 stars, like I understand that emotional, like I get it, that emotional reaction to it. But just me personally, I don't really pay too much attention to it because I don't think it actually matters.
Right. So completely. And I really hope that if anybody's listening to this and they do have a lower score, that it's not a reflection on their hard work. It's not a reflection on their art. It's just a useless system that has no benefit or value to the creators. Yeah. So just ignore it if you can.
And there's also like a commonly like a conspiracy theory in the Webtoon Canvas community that like if you get promoted by Canvas or you get any attention from Canvas, that people will intentionally go downrate because they're like jealous. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not saying that is the case. I don't know. I kind of tend to think that just the more people that look at something, the more likely that you're going to get a a negative or what could be perceived by a creator as negative rating. So yeah, take that into account. Might be a thing, might not be a thing. I don't know. I got promoted by Webtoon. I was on like Hidden Gems, and I had a huge influx of readers, and my rating went down. Like, but that's just what it is. What it is. There are more people looking at it.
Right. Which, as we've discussed, like your series is like literary gold. So, I mean, come on now.
That's very sweet. So kind.
Yeah. I'm going to pump you up. All statements here are biased. All right. Yeah. So, since we're on the topic of webtoons, do you think there's anything specific that they could improve in, possibly? Like things that you would like to see added to the platform, maybe? And if you don't have anything, that's fine too.
Yeah, I have some ideas actually. I think Webtoon Canvas has been doing a really good job recently. I just want to say that, like, they've, since I've started in the last year, they've added a comment moderation system, which, is not anything revolutionary, but it's revolutionary for Webtoon Canvas, and good for them. They did they did it. And then, I don't know if you saw the news, but they're going to make Canvas Day a, like, weekly thing. And they're going to be, giving away like coins. So I think that's going to be huge for Canvas creators because it's going to incentivize people to go over to Canvas and read things, which is a part of the site that a lot of people don't even know is there, Yeah. So that is awesome.
Yeah. Great job. I read, I think somewhere that they're adding tipping too eventually. Like,
yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
like Hobbish's ink or whatever, kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is cool too. But I think so at this point, what I would like to see is from a reader perspective, like discoverability on Webtoon, it is really bad. Like, unless you know the exact name of the series you're looking for, like, and I mean exactly, like it's case sensitive, or, it's on the recommended page or something, like no one can find it at all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it would be really great if they had like a recommended algorithm. And if they can't do that, maybe at least a tagging system so that, like, if you like, for example, supernatural romance, like my comic, you can
Yeah.
search the tag supernatural and romance and see all the comics that fall into that, that genre, that specific genre. So I would love to see, if they can't pull off an algorithm for recommended, a tagging system would be amazing so that people can actually find things that they want to read. I think that's something that's probably going to happen eventually just because it is in the best interest of Webtoon. If people can find things that they actually want to read more easily, they're going to stay on the platform longer. They're going to stay on the website longer.
Mm-hmm.
App long. So I would love that, from a creator perspective and a reader perspective, would really like that. And I would also like, just strictly from a creator perspective, some better analytics, and specifically because I don't know how familiar you are with the analytics, but they basically tell you nothing for your series. Like, they tell you monthly page views. That's basically it. There's something else, but it's useless.
It's irrelevant.
It's totally useless. I would love it if they had a way to tell us how people, like, where those page views came from. So, like, if it came from, if this many people came from external links, so that way, like, if they came from social media, then,
yeah, like,
or
this is working on Instagram when I posted here type thing.
Yeah, like this percentage of people came from external links, this percentage of people came from the Webtoon, like, recently updated page, which I think the majority, I don't have any way to prove this because, there's no analytics, but I think the majority of my readers have come from just simply finding it when it updates in the recently updated. But, I'm sure I've gotten some from social media because I have a TikTok and an Instagram. I'm sure I've gotten some, probably more from TikTok than Instagram, but that's all. Like, I don't have any way to know that. And it would be so great if I could know that, because then I could plan my time more wisely and plan my promotions more wisely.
Those are all really awesome. Like, hearing you say them, I was just like, yes, all of that, please. Like, I definitely think the tagging system would be good, because I find myself, like, when I'm looking through Canvas series, it's hard for me to find something, like, I'm in the mood to read something very particular. So it's like, ooh, I want to read something fluffy right now. And, like, I wish there was a fluff tag, like, just for example. Or if I want something that's dark and gritty, like, this is what I want to read. And then everything that I open that looks dark and gritty ends up being, like, just a fantasy. And I'm just like, that's not what I want to read.
That's not what I want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Me, for example, I like romances, but I really enjoy it when they're a little bit creepy, like a little bit dark, Like, if I could search those tags, I would read them all. Read all of them if I could find them. But I don't know where they are.
#creepy romance. Never seen that hashtag ever.
Like, the Beast of Amity Bluff, our buddy, Boab. Creepy romance. Love it.
Oh man, I feel like, okay, so if you guys don't know, check out the Beast of Amity Bluff, and then go to her comment section, please, and just hashtag creepy romance, like, over and over again.
Hashtag creepy romance under Boab comment section.
I love it. So
yeah, like, Taylor's story is, like, totally, my favorite kind of thing, and, like, if I could find them, I would read them all.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Like, hearing about it, I'm all for it. I would love to see that implemented, like, ASAP. But I guess we'll just have to wait to see what they roll out this year, because it seems like they're, like, steadily making improvements every month.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you're trying.
or working on something at least.
Yeah.
So, well, while we're on the topic of improvement, so what about you as an artist personally? Like an artist, writer, is there anything that you want to improve on?
Oh man. All of it. specifically right now, I'm really, I know I've mentioned it a couple times. I'm working on pacing. Like, I feel like I'm really like getting it. Like now I'm really working on that from a like comic creator perspective. I'm really working on pacing, and like also my series is, romance. So there's a lot of like dialogue scenes. So I'm really working on making more like dynamic handling choices, so that when you don't get the talking head syndrome, I guess, where they're just heads. So I've really been working on that lately. I want to keep getting better at that, like thinking of different interesting perspectives and for my panel layouts and things. Those are my two big ones right now.
Okay. That's awesome. I love to hear what other creators are working on, because sometimes I feel like people look at a comic and just be like, oh, they're good. Like their art style's solid. Like their lettering is good. Their story is solid. And they're just like, they don't really have anything to work on. So I think it's nice for the community to hear that, creators who are even a season deep, 30 plus episodes under their belt are still working on stuff. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm learning new things all the time.
Yes. So, last question. Would you want to become a Webtoon featured artist?
Man, that's a deep question. Maybe.
I'll say maybe. Okay.
I have a job. I've got a, steady career. Yeah. I never really I never set out to do this for it to be a career, It's always been like a personal challenge, a hobby kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, like your name is Hobbish.comics.
Yeah. It's not a goal at all. But, if Webtoon wanted to offer me a contract, I'd think about it.
Yeah. Like, I guess for like, what's the dollar signs looking like? Like, how many zeros are we talking?
Yes, exactly. I need more information to know if it's worth it. Or if I hire art assistants so that I didn't have to quit my job, there's like all kinds of variables. Yeah. Not a goal personally for me. I'm not working towards that, but if it happened, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that though. I think that's really cool to kind of know when you first start out, like what you want. And if if it does come up, how you would react. Like, I think that's really important for creators to kind of consider, like, if this is their first project, if Webtoons did offer them a contract, would they want to move forward with it? Just in the sense of, do you want to do this for the rest of your life type thing? Because this is hard work. Like,
you're going to be a contracted employee. You're going to have to keep up with a really strict deadline, and you're not going to have any health insurance. So,
right. I mean, probably, and depending on the contract, like I don't know how Webtoons works, but like some contracts, they don't take out taxes, so you have to pay your own taxes. Like, there's a bunch of like other variables that go into being like a contract hire. Like, you're not a W-2. Like, all of that stuff is like things that I don't think people realize that actually really impact like your life. And especially if, let's say, like you're the breadwinner in your family and this is your passion to become an original. Well, let's say your job does offer healthcare and you have a family, and then you're like, well, if I take this contract, I won't have healthcare through my job. Now I have to find somewhere to pay for. Like, there's a lot of variables that go into that. So
it's not just like happily ever after Webtoon offered me the contract.
Right.
I think a lot of people, especially younger creators, they really get in their head like, I really love doing this. This would be the best thing that could ever happen to me. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not though.
And just thinking about it, like, you're also taking a chance, because I feel like if it's not successful, I don't know how Webtoons works like behind the scenes, but for me as a business person, like if I invest in you and it's like on a review basis where it's like, if you don't reach these certain numbers by a certain point, we're going to cancel your series. Like, in the entertainment industry, we see that all the time with TV shows. Like, if they're not doing what they were initially supposed to do or not bringing in the ratings, it's just like, yeah, we're done. And then you're out of a job. So then it's like, there's
Yeah.
just so many variables that go into it being successful.
Exactly. And personally, I'm very like risk averse. Like I'm not a risk taker. So.
Oh, same. Like, I like to have, meticulous plot points in, like, if I have a contract, I'm like, okay, I need this to specifically say that XYZ happens, that I'm good. Like,
yeah. I the first time I signed a lease as an adult, I like made the landlord go in and change several things in the lease because I read the whole thing. Like,
oh, yeah.
very much not a risk taker. So yeah, I don't know. Webtoon, if you're listening and you want to offer me a contract, we'll have to discuss it. I don't know.
She will comb through that contract like extremely finely, like every little detail. Like, if the wording is unclear, be prepared to make a revision.
We're gonna have to talk about it. We're gonna have to have a meeting, discuss it.
Oh man, that's so awesome though. And so, to wrap everything up, why don't you just tell everybody where they can follow you? Just give us one last shout out for your comic and your other socials.
Sure. It is The Witch's Stone on Webtoon Canvas. You can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Hobbish.comics. Or you can follow me on TikTok, and it's just Hobbish, and that's HOBBISH, Hobbish, on TikTok.
Yes, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jess. I had such a good time. I cannot wait to have you back, hopefully in the future. Who knows what we'll talk about? Maybe more life lessons for people. So again, look forward to our next video if you are able to come back, and we invite you to check out all of Jess's stuff. So this is Pantheon Interviews. We'll catch you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. I know it was a little bit long, but we had a lot of awesome things to talk about in this interview. So be sure to give us a like, and if you haven't, please subscribe. And if you're interested in being interviewed, feel free to check out the description for the link to the creator applications. All right, we'll see you in the next video.